This is Insight. Phone lines are open. Dial 384-2191.
Yes, we are open to your comments and questions here. It is the first Friday of the month. Happens to be the first day of the month, too, of November. Coming to you live here on AM 1450. You might be watching us on Marshfield Community Television Channel 989 on your Spectrum Digital tier, or with Marshfield Media Access on their website or on their Facebook page, as this is the first Friday of the month. And joining us in studio this morning is Marshfield Mayor Bob McManus. Good morning.
Good morning.
It is fall time, and we are in that move here around the city. It's already with leaf cleanup, and things are going on here with wrapping up of construction. And how are things at City Hall?
Things at City Hall are great, along with cleaning out the leaves, getting ready for the winter to come. You know, we just had our budget that we went through, so it's very active. Overall, in the city, things are going very well. We're, all the leaves have fallen, or a lot of them have. Most of them have. So you can go over there to that the refuge place. If you go over there on Saturday or Sunday, plan on waiting a little while.
Lines are long. Huh?
Lines are long. So overall, things are good.
All right. So this time of the year here, as we wind down activities in the summer and things move indoors, you and I talked last month about what seems like it's a never-ending process here, considering what's gone on in the city with the budget. Now the numbers are getting clearer.
The numbers are clear. It's very interesting because the numbers were actually the budget was submitted to myself and the alderman a few weeks ago. We had our first meeting 2 weeks ago, and to go over everything. And the city staff did a tremendous job on. We worked backwards on it this year, which I think was a good way to go. And so they created a good budget. The original budget called for a 2% tax increase, which it takes up the tax rate from 9.26 to 9.45. So that people can calculate that. That means if your house is worth $100,000, the tax you were paying was $926. Now it would go up to $945. So it's a bit of an increase. There were a lot of people are misconstruing that to think that they're going to go up hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's not. Through the process, Alderman Jokic. Now, let me explain something about how this budget happened, and then that will put the rest of this in perspective. As you know, we've talked about it on this show. Back in February, we got notice that the way we were doing it prior was wrong. And we had our outside financial folks come in, the auditors come in and saying, the way that you were doing it was not normal. And this is what I've said forever. You know, for some reason, Jeff, people in government can't say it's wrong. I don't know if in their version of Webster's dictionary that word is out. It was being done wrong. And what we kept hearing was nothing malicious was done, and I will say nothing malicious was done, and not a penny was missing. And everyone was saying it's buried in the details so deep that the average person couldn't do it. Well, we heard that for months and months, and I kept saying, then if it's buried so deep, then where was it buried? We have to be able to do that. So now we come across, and now we see exactly what took place. We started off at a $1.8 million hole for the budget. And
annual hole.
What's that?
Annual.
So, and this year was going to be the biggest, 1.8 this year, and then next year we'll start off only 825,000 in the hole. So this year, through a lot of refinancing of structured debt, taking advantage of lower rates, cuts, and things like that, we got that hole down to about 300,000. And so that's a significant savings, and that goes to the credit of Steve Barger, the city administrator, the Ron Alman, the finance director, and all the city staff, all the folks in managers of department supervisory position, helping us out there, making cuts where needed, because you still need to run the city. And so that's where they proposed a 2% tax hike. Well, since that first meeting and in between the second meeting, we found out that our assessed values we were expecting it to be about 5%. It comes from the state that it's only 2%. So that's a huge difference in the equalized value. So, but we're still able to live within that. But here's the issue. If we want to solve the future, if we want to solve the complete budget deficit, if you will, then the max that we could go this year would be $975 per thousand. So as opposed to where we're at $945, and I'll come back to that in a second. That's the max we could levy. Now, nobody wants to go that high, but that still, Jeff, doesn't fix the deficit. In order to do that, you'd have to be up at $10.04. So you'd be looking at a tax increase from $925 to $1,004. So it's a pretty good size. For a lot of people can absorb it. For seniors and for folks on fixed incomes, yeah, that is a lot of money. So Alderman Jokic said he proposed that we raise it another percent to 3% because we have to get closer. Otherwise, every year we're going to keep going. And I still did not receive at that point an accurate clear information on where this magic black hole was and how it wasn't done. I will tell you what, I lost sleep that night as we go through. If you look at the city administrator's recommended budget for all the years leading up, it shows that the amount that the TIDs are sending over to the general fund in one lump sum. That's the only thing that says what each TID is playing. So it's all in there together. And that money goes into the general fund, if you will, into the checking account to pay the bills. Everyone, aldermen, everybody involved thought that $2 million transfer was just to pay for the TIDs. So it would go in one bucket and it would go out in another bucket. The whole amount would go out. Well, that's not the way it was. It was a very bad accounting practice. That should be itemized. Like if you have, you know that if you're listening to this or watching this, maybe you have a mortgage, maybe you have a car payment, any kind of loan. You see, this is what your balance is, this is what your payment is, this is what goes to principal and interest, and then this is your remaining balance. That is the most standard practice of accounting. Jeff, they weren't doing that. So what happened is, let's just use a transfer of $2 million. But to pay the debt is only $1.5 million. You keep that other $500,000 here in the general fund or your checking account. You're starting off $500,000 ahead before you do your budget. Makes it look like you don't have to increase any tax returns. Or not tax returns, taxes. This has been going on for the last 8 years, and even more before because of the way they said the process. So now the way we have structured this is each TID is identified, TID number 2. This is how much principal is, this is how much interest is, and this is how much the fees are. So you see exactly the amount that the TIDs have to pay, and those come over here. That was the problem, was the accounting practice of not clearly defining what each TID is going to get. It was not transparent. It was all just put into a big bucket. So anybody looking at it would see TID transfer here. That's going to pay the debt of the TIDs. There you go. What nobody realized is is that a lot of that money stayed in the account. In 2014, I think it was, either 13 or 14, the amount that stayed over was over $500,000. So you're not going to have to levy. It's artificial. In the following year, it went way down to $380,000. It's staggering to me. And the issue that I have, and I was very clear on this at that meeting, is the fact of, what makes me mad is we are asking all of our department heads, do more with less. Do it better, do more with less. And we're asking the taxpayer, clean up the mess. Jeff, that's just right. It has to be done, right? We're to the point where it has to be done. And what people forget is, I don't like. I want to pay the minimum tax I have to. So I don't like raising taxes or seeing taxes go up. But the other side of this is, I'm also very practical. I realize that employee payrolls from 2014 are higher now in 2019. Healthcare, oh my gosh. I mean, the amount that healthcare has gone up in the last 5 years to the employer, in this case the city, is tremendous. So that there's always going to be an increase there. We can't decrease services. You can't decrease snow removal. Snow removal is not a profit center. Fire, police, you have to have those. Great education system. So it's unnerving to me. It's quite upsetting that there are folks that just take this, that's just the way it is. Let's just raise the taxes. It's wrong. But we are to a point where we have to do it now because we have to at least have our minimums. And so it's going to take a little while. So we're looking at, we did a comparison between us and Stevens Point, Wausau, and Rapids. And, our tax base, many people think our taxes here in Marshfield are high. We're the lowest of the four or the three local ones, and I'm doing a bigger one because I want to see at least 20 different similar-sized cities that are all, we tout a low tax base, which is good, even though citizens here in Marshfield believe that our taxes are high because I've not met one person that likes paying taxes. I don't. But it is necessary to run a city. So the budget did then. So then when Alderman Jokic said, let's go up 3% so we can move ahead. Now, what will a 3% tax increase do? It'll make our deficit next year go from $825,000 down to about $690,000. So we start getting to where it's a little bit more palatable. And then each year it will get less and less and less. But it's going to take a little while. We are going to have to clean up the mess that we inherited and do the responsible thing. And sadly, it's going to fall on to the taxpayer. And there's no easy way around it.
People will ask you, like with gasoline or anything, when it comes up, when does it go back down? You're going to have to increase us now to get us, because we have a little bump in the road here that we have to get over. When do we start to come back down again? But the problem is that as you go out further in the years, the other things start costing more.
Right.
And so you never really go down, and that's what people complain about, but it's just the reality of what does. With inflation, you can figure that over a period of time, this 3% will get us through the holes that we've experienced. But by the time we get to the end of that, over a 10-year span, everything else will be costing more. The trucks that we need, the asphalt we need, the things that the city buys.
You're right. I mean, it's a very true thing. When will they go? What we know right now is in order to cure this to where the deficit would be cured, it would be to get the taxes up to $10.04. And then we could look at down the road. Now you've kind of solved your budget issue for the next couple of years, and then it's going to hold. Pending, wages staying reasonable. We always have, wages always go up. We're not going to ask. Most people don't stay at a job if their wages go down, and you don't keep great talent if you're reducing there. And it's not fair to the citizens. The citizens ask all the time, what about this, and can we increase this, and what about more things to do in Marshfield? Well, those things all cost money. So when is it going to go down? I don't know. Now, there is a point that when we do get caught up, will we be okay, and can we look for it? And I just don't have that answer right now because, as you say, and I agree with you, wages are going to continue to go up. Healthcare is going to continue to go up. Vehicle prices are going to everything's going to continue to go up. But you can manage it. The issue was for the consumer out there, for the people on a fixed income. And I've not talked to the council about this yet. I've not talked to Steve about this yet. Or there has got to be a way that we can protect our seniors or people on a fixed income, because for many people to go up, that we don't want anybody to go from $9.26 to $10.04, even though, what would that be? 78 cents or $78 on a $100,000 house. What would that be on a $200,000 house? $160,000 or something like that. Many people can absorb that. But there are people that can't. And especially somebody out there, maybe their only income is Social Security, that extra money does crimp them. Can we do something for our seniors? Their taxes on their properties are fixed. I haven't even gone into that. I know there are some states that do that, and they do it for a reason. We can look into that down the road, I believe. But right now, we have to fix this issue.
He's Mayor Bob McManus. You can talk with us live here on AM 1450 WDLB this first Friday in November, first day of November for that matter, 384-2191, 384-2191. We're coming to you in video on Marshfield's Community Access on Channel 989, your Spectrum Digital tier, or you can watch us at marshfieldmediaaccess.org, or you can watch us on their Facebook page. These interviews are also posted there. So a couple of things caught my ear. One, we went from 1.5 as the number that we were short, and through, if I'm understanding correctly, squeezing the people in City Hall and everyone else, that we got that down to where the taxpayer was only responsible for $600,000.
$300,000.
$300,000.
Yeah, we actually started at 1 point. The deficit was 1.8 and some change, and we got it down to about $300,000. So there was about $1.5 million between cost savings, refinances, and cuts that we were able to whittle that down. That in and of itself is a great job by Steve Barg, city administrator, and Ron Amman and the department heads going through and making cuts that they can make. That alone is really quite an ordeal. Now, here's the thing. You really do all that this year, that's going to be very hard to do next year, because you've already cut about everything that you possibly can. So with this higher tax increase to 3% and that getting down below $700,000, that is going to be helpful.
Well, that was the other question, was that you can't keep at that rate of cuts.
No.
So what will the taxpayers' responsibility be, in your estimation, next year? You threw out a figure of $800,000.
What will well, I would say, to cure this, would be to get it to $10.04. That's somewhere down the road. Now, we're not going to go all there in 1 year. Maybe it goes up another 1 or 2% next year. Until we can actually get through. This is what I learned. That last year in the budget process, it was not enjoyable as a new mayor because it was the first one. You don't want to do tax increases. And it changes on a daily basis. I mean, I would call Steve and Ron on a Monday, and they're thinking, oh, this is going to be great. And talk to them Tuesday, and it's like, we ran into a bit of a wall. And then on Wednesday, no, we're fine with the wall. And it's like just up and down. Even this budget here where Steve and they put out this great budget, and it's an understandable budget. And then in between the time that we had the first budget meeting with myself and the Common Council and the next budget meeting, which was a week away, there was a substantial change in equalized value. And I'm looking at this like, how does equalized value change 3% in a week? And I will say dealing with the state is not simple. It's not easy, and it's also not negotiable. So there are some big things. Now I will say this: the good part of all of this is that our TIDs, all of our TIDs, are doing quite well. That is really helping the taxpayer right now. So when we've got these areas in Yellowstone and the different TIDs, the downtown TID, the Forward Bank TID, and a few others, those are really producing well. And because those values go up, hence those taxes go up, those were very smart investments that the city made before to really help, because that equalized value going up is very, very helpful. And so from that aspect, it's good. The other thing is, got a lot of businesses wanting to come here. There's some really good things out on the horizon. On Tuesday, there will be a meeting at the UW in room 131 and it's Josh is putting it on, and there's going to be other folks. We're having somebody from Madison come up to talk, and it's on the decline of retail. And I'll be speaking there. Other folks will be speaking there. And that is a real issue. And so we're seeing that decline. However, in Marshfield, we're having a resurgence of business openings. You just saw Hostreiter Industries open. We have Pizza Ranch is opening. There's other businesses scheduled to open next year. Businesses open when they are optimistic about their future. So there are a lot of great things going on with the city, but anytime you talk about taxes, it's just not fun.
Put your headphones on there. We'll bring in Mike Warren from the newsroom.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Yep. So I think the other issue here with this budget, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, is the other thing that came out at this budget meeting the other day is that the city administrator, Steve Barg, said, I mean, it's not yet, we're talking about this deficit that, again, is not a structural deficit, but it is a deficit nonetheless. That's not the only issue here. Steve Barg said, we have under-levied for quite a while, and this is a quote, from 2005 to 2018, we have had a total increase in the tax rate of just under 4% over 14 years. And as a result of that, we're starting this year at $9.26 per thousand value, while our neighbors in Point Rapids and Wausau are well above that. In other words, we've been falling behind. We should have been keeping up with smaller increases from year to year, rather than the council being, I'll say, short-sighted in terms of not keeping up with inflation and pay raises and other things. We have been, I guess, doing maybe too good of a job at holding the line on tax increases.
You know what? I really like the way you say that, when you say too good of a job on holding the line. It's one thing to hold the line. It's another thing when you don't take care of your responsibilities. And I will tell you, for many people to go to from a 925 to 955, that's going to be something. But people can go from 925 to 930. $5 over a year. You know, what is that? 40 cents a month. People can absorb that. But you're right, Mike. It's absolutely true. There were structural problems with it. It was done wrong. There's no way around it. It was done wrong. We even look at the way some of our formulations were done. The formulations were done wrong. And so now what we're in, when we've had this little fantasy land, if you will, of you're right, keeping things what I call artificially low. Now what we're going to do for the taxpayers now for the next couple of years is we're going to have to make up for that, for those processes that were done incorrect.
Well, and the other thing I wanted to interject here in all of this, and this might muddy the waters a little bit, but and the other part about this equation, it came out that, well, we underestimated our assessed value. The value of the city is lower than we thought it was. We estimated 5%. It's 2% in the increased assessed valuation rate. So back in, I forget the years, it was late 2000s. It was like 7, 8, 9, somewhere in there. We did a citywide revaluation. We revalued all the properties, okay? Mm-hmm. And the city at that time promised they weren't going to wait another 10 years or longer to do another citywide revaluation. And here we're sitting in 2019. I don't think it's been done lately. Maybe they're doing it piecemeal and doing areas of the city, here and there. But any update there in terms of revaluing city, I guess, more often so that we don't have these big jumps in terms of valuation of property, and thus our property tax bill, sees these big increases there too, because we're not doing a reval as often as the city promised it would be done.
You're right. It is supposed to be done on a certain period of time. And if you look at the average tax bill, and if you're in Wood County and you look at your average tax bill on any given property, the tax, what your assessed value is anywhere from 15 to 20% below what your actual value is. Now, that doesn't mean that taxes would jump that much, because then your levy limit would trade and your tax rate feasibly would come down, right? But realistically, you would pay more tax because your value is higher. So it's a very artificial number. This is a problem I have in government, and this is not just in Marshfield. The numbers, the way people come up with stuff, you just wonder how they come up with doing this. I mean, let's be real. When you see the real estate market through, certainly here in the Marshfield area, going up 4-5% a year, but then you go and you say, well, no, you can only go 2%. Right off the bat, you're saying we're off by 3%. And you talk to most financial folks that work in government, no, that's not the way it is. Yes, it is. If the market has gone up 5%, and you see that over and over and over, we have such a shortage of inventory here. Marshfield is in demand, and there's such a shortage of inventory. Your values are naturally higher. So, as I just said, so when we see our market up 4 to 5%, but the equalized value only goes up 2%, how anybody can be confused that there's this huge difference is beyond me. If we know that the market goes up 5%, there you go. Then you do the value. Now, again, that's not going to change much as far as the amount, because you can't over levy somebody, so we can't do that. But what is the true definition of value of a property? Which is why I don't know why we do this. And when I asked about it, and I'm going to be asking about it more and more, is if a property sells for, say, $150,000, the true definition of value is what a willing buyer will pay to a willing seller. That new assessed value should be $150,000. You should start there. People in the appraisal industry call that chasing values. I call that accurate values. So we've got to get used to doing things, and I hate to say this because it's a word that people are uncomfortable with, but we have to do it different. We have to change, and that is difficult for people, even when they're doing things that are clearly wrong. I mean, when we were doing as Ron went back, and I will tell you, our finance guy, Ron Allman, is brilliant. I mean, brilliant. He's had to go through, because the way that we were doing our TIF worksheets were wrong. How do people not pick up on that? When we had auditors and everybody else, where were they? Where was the microscope? And I tell you, I've lost sleep over this over the last several weeks, because it just, and I've lost sleep over this not as mayor, as a taxpayer in this city. Where was the oversight? And it's just too easy to fall into, okay, well, there it is. Let's go on and let's go from it now. Because I feel bad, and I feel bad especially for the people, for the seniors and the people on fixed incomes. This is, we have to go in and we have to clean up a mess. And I just wish that there were more people in government, in local government, that would just acknowledge it. We've created a mess, and now we have to fix it. And we are asking the taxpayers to fix it. And in my opinion, that's wrong. But we have no other. The city is not a income-producing thing, so that's where we have to go. And the only thing we could say to the taxpayers, to Mike's point, a very valid point, is you've had it really good for, 12 to 15 years, and now we're going to have to go, and it's going to be a couple of years where it's going to get more expensive.
Well, the other thing is, if you want to sell your house and you think, it's probably worth $165,000, then you go to the city, which hasn't revalued it for a while, and they are telling you, no, we have it assessed, it's assessed value at $125 or $130 or something like that. Now, potential buyers are going, well, wait a minute, then why are you asking for $165? And the city's not keeping up with their valuations.
That is a brilliant point. Here's the other thing. There are people that go to their tax bill to look at the value, and they do a for sale by owner, and they get their tax bill. Maybe it's a senior or somebody that's owned their property for years and paid it off, and they see that their home is worth $160, or their assessed value and fair market value is $165, and they talk to some of their neighbors or go out, anybody want to buy this for $165? They're leaving money on the table because of, to Mike's point, and I agree with it 100%. The thing is, what we need more of, and what's really interesting is I go back to a lot of stuff, when I was running for mayor. I mean, these are things that I was running on. That I didn't know what was wrong, but I knew that there were things wrong. I couldn't put my thing on it, but I went through tax bills on properties for years, and it just didn't make any sense. I mean, there are some people that are paying less in tax this year than they were 5 years ago. And it's like, well, then how does the city run? If you're bringing in less, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. And so now we're to a point where we're catching a lot of that, and we're fixing it. So we're in that fixed process. And I'll tell you, this is what it is. I just had my knee replaced in September. And, prior to that, things were going along pretty well. Had my knee replaced, and right now I'm in that getting it better phase, therapy and blah, 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 blah. And it is getting better. It's getting better, great. But I'm not going to see the benefit of that pain and this going through the rehab and everything. Now it's getting better and better every day. But where the real benefit is going to be in a year. Well, right now, unfortunately, for the citizens of Marshfield, we just had the surgery, and it was called this budget deficit. And now we're going to go through a couple years of rehab, and it's going to get better. But we have to be diligent in the fact that we're going to have to be hawks on this. And I'm hoping that my other, that the council members will jump on board with me and watch this stuff. I just hope they'll jump on board and watch this and not just go to the next agenda item. And I appreciate the professionalism of every one of the aldermen there. And I know that they do the best that they can, but there needs to be a voice. The other thing that we need drastically is we need public input, not on social media. You go on social media and you could do that and you go complain and you got a social media thing. Come to City Hall so that the aldermen hear, this isn't right. And let them know. Let your aldermen know in your district. You could find their phone number. It's all posted. Let them know how you feel. Have them, explain this to you. You're paying the bill. The taxpayer is the boss. We are the servants. And that is the way it should be. And there needs to be, and we can't go back. And a lot of people say, we can't blame this or we can't blame that. You know what? We can say that things were done wrong. And we're not going to get into the blame game, but is there any accountability anymore? What are we going to do? Hurt somebody's feelings? There has to be accountability. And so we at least need, here at this point is, we can't go back and blame anybody. We're not going to do that. It serves no purpose. There's no value. But we can at least say there was a mistake. And to Mike's point, I think Mike's point is a very important point. Since 2005, 2006, especially since 9 and 10, if you go in and you look at these things, it was Candyland. Business was not being taken care of. The valuation sheets were done wrong. And so by that, you have a wrong levy amount and everything else. And, taxes are artificially low. No way around it.
Right, yeah. Those were the only talking points I wanted to introduce to the discussion. It wasn't just the 1.8 million. There were other factors. That was the big one. That's the headline grabber. But there were other things, not keeping up, really, maybe under taxing or not, going for those smaller increases year to year versus holding the line. And then all of a sudden you get a big jump, 7 or 8 or 10 years later. And plus the revaluation that the city said they were going to do more often and haven't kept up with. So there are lots of factors here that go into what the final tax rate is. So that's all I wanted to interject into the discussion.
All right, Mike Warren from the WDLB newsroom here on this first Friday in November. We are coming to you live on WDLB radio. You can join us 384-2191, 384-2191. You may be watching us on Marshfield Community Television 989 on your Spectrum Digital tier, or at Marshfield Media Access on the Facebook or on their site. We'll continue with your calls if you would like to jump in here in just a moment. WDLB's Insight program here this first Friday of the month, which happens to also be the first day of the month of November. You know that if you're listening live, or you could be watching us in video here at Marshfield Media Access or at Channel 989 on your Charter or your Spectrum Digital tier. And I just want to say that because some of the things we talk about here may have already been taken care of from one point or another. So, if you're watching us, it's the first Friday of the month here. And we're talking with Mayor Bob McManus on the program today. He avails himself to us the first Friday of the month to talk with you, 384-2191. And the news story today in the news was and is the budget. And it seems like that's, since you've been mayor and even previous mayors, that's a constant talking point.
Yeah.
There are times when it's less on the budget, on the agenda, I should say, but it's seldom out of people's mind. And all these little nuances that we're talking about right now have all been on people's mind from time to time throughout the year.
Sure.
You buy a property and you go, a fair market value, assessed value, what's that mean?
Right.
3/4 of the people don't know. You're in the lending business, and you know what it means, but do you know what it means as for the city now? And now you do. And people are getting a bit of an education here, too, as to what that means. The difference between, we've been talking about a $100,000 home because it's an easy round number.
Right.
But there's also taxes on all properties. It's not just on homes.
Right.
How much is made up by other?
So it's $9.26 per thousand. So whether it's land,
Could be an empty lot.
could be an empty lot. So if you just buy a lot for $35,000, and it's $9.26 per thousand, and that will go up to $9.55 per thousand.
What do you know about the dark store rule? See, this is where this comes in, too, where stores used to be, and they built a new one, and now the old one sits there, and what rate is that taxed at? And they're saying, well, no, we want our new store at the old store price, and what? They're doing a flim-flam
Yeah,
here.
that's another thing. And again, it all gets down to, it takes money to run a city, and you need that coming in from all aspects. And some of the bigger stores, the Menards and the Walmarts and whatnot, they want the value of their stores to be worth less, so that, if it's, instead of being valued at $8 million, it's valued at $6 million. That's a substantial drop in the amount. The issue is where they're coming up with this, and the dark store theory is, let's take a store. Let's, when you do an appraisal on a home, you get 3 to 4 comps of like properties. So if there are 3-bedroom ranches, then you want to do you want all your comps to be 3-bedroom ranches, like for like. And you're not going to, if it's a 3-bedroom ranch but it's vacant, really don't want to throw that in the mix. In the dark store theory, what these big stores, box stores, want to do is not have comps be other successful stores, but rather get comps of buildings that are the same size and square footage but are vacant. Well, so you've got one property that's not bringing in any money, and a big property here that's thriving financially, and so they want that lower tax rate. And so the city and many municipalities, and the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, is fighting this feverishly, because if that would take place, then, and the city loses that income on that value, we got to make up for it. Your bills don't go down just because they pay less taxes, right? Where does that go? It goes right back to the taxpayer. So, and even the renter, because the owner of a property is going to increase rent. So it affects everybody.
Do you foresee that happening with this percentage increase?
What's that?
Of rentals being raised?
No, I don't see this, because I think, realistically, on a $100,000 property, you're for ease of math, your taxes are going to go up $30 for a year. So what are you going to do? Raise it? What would that be? About $2.50 or, $3 a month? I don't see that affecting a renter. I can't see a landlord doing that. And I will tell you, people are getting good rents right now because supply and demand. Marshfield is in demand. And that's why our values are, we got great employers here. We got rail, PCA, of course, Marshfield, the health system here. These are all great employers doing great wages. PCA and Masonite starting people at $19 an hour. These are great wages, so it's in demand. And of course, when you have higher demand, that takes everything up.
Was there discussion in the room about this would do about economic development, if it would put anybody off?
No. I mean, there was because this is a. If we were really, really high, as Mike said even earlier, I mean, we weren't even keeping up with where we should. So it's not like we're looking to go crazy with taxes. Nobody wants to do that. But even if you get up to where realistically, if things would have been going and had little 4 to 5 cent increases every year, people can absorb that. That's not going to put anything off. This tax increase for the majority of people, a majority of people won't even feel it. The $30 in a year, most people aren't even going to feel it. Not going to like it. But I hear people all the time say, our taxes here are so high, it's the highest of the big three. And then when I show them, I did a town hall and I'll be doing another one coming up. When I show them the tax bases of everywhere else and see that we're the lowest, a lot of people still don't.
They don't want to believe that.
They don't want to believe that, and yet it's right there. This is what our tax base is. We've got in this city, the tax issue is one thing, but when I did the show with John McGivern around the corner that's going to be coming out, you look at this and you've got, here in this city, this is not normal. We have got great elementary, middle, and high school, both public and private. And both the public and private schools are putting out tremendous education. Along with that, we have a university that now has 4 4-year degrees and now a master's program. Not to mention the other technical schools right here. We've got a major medical center right here, a vibrant medical center. Companies like Rail, I mean, what a great story Rail is. And we've got all that right here in our one city. That's just not normal. And so, when you look at all the benefits of things going on, it really is tremendous. And that's why, when you look at the show that we're going to be doing, just to date this, it'll be Tuesday, November 5th at the UW. It's the decline of retail. Well, it's very simple why. I think it's the experience people have, which we have a show on our cable access 989, 990, and 991 Experience Marshfield. When in many of these big box stores, they had this thing a long time ago. It was called customer service. Remember when you got customer service, and people were polite and right, and now you don't get that. But we're seeing a resurgence of that. It was just my wife's birthday recently, and I went into Shelley Babcock owns Merle Norman down there. It's a clothing store like Ray Baxter's, And when you go into those places, I mean, you walk in, they're happy to see you, and you get the experience of buying clothes and everything. It's tremendous, and that's what people are looking for. But we're being trained differently, Jeff. If you look at you go into McDonald's, everybody loves Big Macs. Maybe not everybody, but I do. But when you go into there, they've got 5 registers right up front. And we're being trained away from customer service. They're trained at Walmart. You look down at Pick and Save. Many people are going to, or many companies are going to this.
Self-checkout.
Self-checkout. You've got 5 counters right up front, but you only have one person there. And so the line gets long. And so many people that would not normally order their Big Mac, they look at the thing right there and they'll go over. They're uncomfortable doing it the first time, but they'll go try it. And then McDonald's will even give you 50 cents off your Happy Meal to do it. And you do it the first time, that wasn't so bad. And you get your stuff before the other people waiting in line. You just got trained that next time you come, you're just going to go you're going to go faster. There are some over in Toma. They have, for people that really want to be fast, they have it where you could text in your order so that before you get to McDonald's, you must really be hungry. Before you get there, they'll have your order ready. Those changes are evolving, and that is affecting this retail market.
It sure is. Let's go to the phone. Howard, good morning. You're on the air.
Yeah, good morning. I love this stuff. I appreciate it when the city of Marshfield or the township that I live in comes out with the words, there will be no increase in taxes. I appreciate that because my Social Security is going to go up 1.6 there in January, I believe. So if the city comes out with a 4 or 5% increase, my increase in Social Security just went to the city, So I have to come up with ways of coming up with these shortfalls, whether it's taxes to the city or April 15th rolls around and I'm short again for the feds and state taxes. So my health care goes up, my insurance on the house goes up. I got to find ways of making up for these shortfalls. So any city or town that can keep in that 0% increase, I love it. That's my 2 cents worth.
And we do appreciate your call, and those are the people that I feel the worst for. That's a very valid concern.
Let's go to Laura. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Yes. Maybe this doesn't pertain to what you're talking about, but does our local government have any control on what Spectrum charges for their services?
No, local government doesn't. Spectrum is an independent business, and so we really don't control what their pricing is or anything else for their internet, their phone, or their cable, or any of that. Local government really can't control that type of thing. I believe federal government has some type of regulation on that, but not local government.
Okay.
We don't get involved.
Okay, but on their bill they'll say, sales tax, FCC, and all that for charges. Then another part it says other charges, and on mine it says $11.99. Well, what's other charges? It doesn't sound right.
Your hometown.
Right, you're right. That doesn't sound right. That would be a question for them. They should be able to. They should be able to itemize that for you. And I would encourage you to take your bill and don't call or go to their automated thing. Charter Spectrum has a office over there in the mall, right next to Ashley Furniture. The people there are very friendly. They will take the time to sit down and explain every one of those charges for you, because you are certainly entitled to a response on what each charge is.
Okay. But now, like the charges, they sneak in those little $2 or whatever it is. Anyway, that amounts to over $30 a year for me. And, looks like a lot of money at the time. Well, for me anyway, let's put it that way. But, okay, I'll have to do as you say and check with them directly instead of just sitting here wondering what it is.
Yep, absolutely. You are when you're paying for a service, you're entitled to know where every penny goes to. And I can assure you that if you go there, they will spend the time to explain it to you.
Okay, thank you so much. Enjoy your program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think where you get involved sometimes is because there was a fee that the city gets from them, and so they think that there's some other business that you may be able to, put the screws to them or whatever, or negotiate.
Sure.
But you can't. All right, I appreciate your time. It's wonderful to have you.
Thank you very much.
All right, Mayor Bob McManus here on today's Inside program on AM 1450 WDLB.